Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of Ternoa, a groundbreaking blockchain that's redefining the game in the NFT space and beyond. So buckle up and let's explore why Ternoa is not just another layer 1 blockchain, but a game changer for Web3 privacy. Ternoa is not your typical blockchain. It's one-of-a-kind NFT blockchain designed to encrypt and secure data, bringing a new level of privacy into the realm of Web3. Now, when we talk about Ternoa being a layer 1 blockchain, we mean it's a base network, just like Bitcoin, BNB chain, or Ethereum. This is where the magic happens. Without relying on another network, it's the core infrastructure of Ternoa. To put it in perspective, layer 1 and layer 2 are key terms helping us grasp the architecture of different blockchains. Ternoa's layer 1 is the powerhouse handling transactions and validating without needing the external support. Now let's talk currency. Ternoa's native coin caps isn't just for show, it's used for transaction fees, deploying the apps, and rewarding those actively participating in the network's validation mechanism. Ternoa is not just riding the proof-of-stake wave, it's enhancing it with denominated proof-of-stake. This system ensures a balanced distribution of power with validators and nominators playing distinct roles, fostering a more democratic network. Delegating stakes empowers stakeholders to influence governance decisions, making Ternoa's infrastructure more secure and representative. It's not just about transaction, it's about shaping the future of the blockchain. Now, for all of you developers out there, coding on Ternoa is a breeze. No need to learn a whole new language like Ethereum. Ternoa's SDK is user-friendly, especially for JavaScript enthusiasts. So if you're ready to code on the cutting edge, Ternoa has got you covered. There you have it, folks. Ternoa, a layer 1 blockchain pushing boundaries and bringing a new era of privacy to Web3. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button for more exciting content.